It's official. Michael Saylor now owns more Bitcoin than BlackRock. Yes, you heard that right. In today's video, we'll be talking about this, going over the most recent Bitcoin price action, and also touching on the new developments between the US and Iran. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Bitcoin currently sits just above $75,000. Now, we had a lot of new developments over the course of this weekend. Just to give you a quick recap, at the end of last week, Bitcoin went all the way up to above $78,000, tapping into its bull market support band. Now, usually in a bear market, these kinds of bands act as resistance, which we saw previously when Bitcoin tapped into it at around $97,000. So, my expectation over the course of this year, as I've constantly reiterated, is that Bitcoin will likely be headed lower. And it's not just a crypto thing, it's an overall market thing as well. I need you to understand the fact that the only reason Bitcoin is showing some kind of strength here, or I should say the only two reasons are, one, the stock market is seeing some nice movement to the upside, making a brand new all-time high. And so long as we can hold above this pivot, all will be okay for crypto. However, the more important factor that I'd like for you to consider is Michael Saylor. Now, Michael Saylor officially surpassed BlackRock's Bitcoin holdings. Strategy owns around 815,000 Bitcoins, and BlackRock own just over 800,000 Bitcoin. Last week alone, Michael Saylor's companies bought over $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is absolutely insane. He just keeps on buying Bitcoin with any excess capital that he can find. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of this. Yes, it can support the price of Bitcoin, but in this kind of market, he really seems to be one of the only buyers. I genuinely wonder where Bitcoin would be trading right now if Saylor wasn't dollar cost averaging billions every single week. I feel exactly the same as this guy on X, because if you remove his buys from the order flow, the chart does look very different. One guy is holding up the entire market with a corporate credit card, and everyone is essentially acting like this is normal. Couldn't agree more. I think it's important to exercise a little bit of caution here as Bitcoin tapped into its bull market support band. Now, does it mean that we're just going to immediately roll over from here? Not necessarily, because if Saylor can support the price, if the stock market can hold on here, of course Bitcoin can push a little bit higher. But in bear markets, we tend to get these relief rallies, and what I'm seeing here is another relief rally. My stance has remained exactly the same, and this is how I've been trading this market. You can see that I'm still shorting Bitcoin and I'm still shorting Tau. My expectation is that these will both likely be moving lower. Of course, it's important for you to manage your positions because I've been in these trades for quite some time, been very open about that as well, but I am planning on taking some more profits on the way down. If you want to see how I am personally trading the market, please remember you do have the first link in my description down below. If you DM me the keyword CBM on Telegram, you'll be able to join my group where I share all of my own personal trades for free. Keep in mind, this isn't just me posting a gazillion signals every day. They are truly my own personal trades. And so there's some days where I don't even trade because I am indeed a swing trader. Anyways, if you want access to that for free, DM me the keyword CBM on Telegram, and you'll just have to sign up with one of the affiliate exchange links down below, and you start trading on there as you'd normally do with your own capital. So let's get back to the charts. Bitcoin is currently hovering right at around $75,600 as I'm recording this video, and we need to pay attention on the lower time frames to a couple of key pivots. First and foremost, we had this level at around 76K, which previously marked the local top for Bitcoin before we came all the way back down to $65,000, holding support within this range for another move to the upside. Having previously broken past this level, if it starts acting as resistance, that could be the first initial signs of weakness for Bitcoin. You can see that recently we've wicked into the level several times, and actually on this move down going into the weekend, we managed to wick into it again, getting rejected. However, for the bulls, we are now above those tariff capitulation lows. So this is going to be a very, very interesting environment to see how Bitcoin reacts to each level here, because so long as we're between these two levels, I would say it's essentially a no trade zone for Bitcoin. On the higher time frames, still feel exactly the same, but we need to understand that so long as we stay above the tariff capitulation lows, there's always a chance that we can go ahead and even potentially sweep these highs again. But the higher that Bitcoin potentially goes, the more interested I would be in entering a brand new Bitcoin short position for the remainder of this bear market. At this point in time, we've been in the exact same range for literally 2 months. So until we either break to the upside or break to the downside, this is very much a choppy trading environment. And just something else I need to address before we go ahead and talk about the Strait of Hormuz, Iran, and the US and how that impacts the market. The last bear market, we had someone called Do Kwon who was blasting billions from Luna. And if you've been in crypto for a while, I'm sure you remember Luna, huge Ponzi, and price was not making significant progress. Right now, Saylor is essentially blasting even more billions and price is even less reactive. So yes, this is a nice move to the upside, but this is effectively what happened in the previous bear market when Do Kwon was blasting billions into Bitcoin. Yes, we got a pump. Yes, we got supported, but we ultimately resorted lower. So please remember that. Don't get too excited if you see Bitcoin, for example, popping back up to the top of its existing range. The long trade, as I mentioned in my previous videos, was right around $65,000. I talked about it in my group. It was a great longing opportunity because we managed to go below that value area low of the existing range, and we swept up a lot of this downside liquidity on the way up. So now let's talk about the recent geopolitical developments. It seems like Trump continues to play the exact same playbook. The stock market, however, today did open up a little bit red, but we are still well above the all-time highs. So as long as we can't get acceptance back below this level, this could still technically support crypto prices. Now, we need to understand that over the last 48 hours, this was the recap. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. The US claimed peace talks would resume with Iran. Iran then backed out of peace talks with the US, which they then claimed was just a tactic. And then Iran has accused the US of plotting a surprise attack. The US struck and seized an Iranian vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran denied Trump's claims of giving up uranium enrichment. And then, of course, as we head into the new week, Vice President J.D. Vance is prepared to go to Pakistan to continue the negotiations. Now, we have to also remember that the ceasefire technically ends as of Wednesday. So let's see if this is just used as another negotiation tactic. It seems like over the course of the week, progress is made in terms of the negotiations, the markets continue to rally, and then when the weekend rolls around, both sides seem to be attacking each other as the market is closed. Now, let's take a look at the liquidation heat map because this paints a pretty clear picture. On the 48-hour time frame, you can see that we do have a good amount of liquidity to the upside. So this is why I'm not ruling out a little push to the upside once more. I know it can get exhausting, but my base case on the higher time frames has remained exactly the same. This is a bear market rally, and only time will tell as to when it will get rejected before likely moving lower. Of course, nothing that I discuss on the channel should be construed as financial advice. I'm just a guy on the internet sharing all of his own personal trades and his overall market analysis. So, shorter time frame, you can see that there's some liquidity built up to the upside, and there is some liquidity to the downside, although it is more significant above the current levels. However, on the higher time frames, on the 30-day time frame, for example, you'll notice that there is over 2 times more cumulative long liquidation leverage in the market compared to cumulative short liquidation leverage in the market, which means we can spike up and come back down. That's why I said in this kind of range between the tariff capitulation lows and this 76K pivot, it's basically a no trade zone in my opinion as I wait for the price action to develop. And to give you a further update on my overall targets for this bear market, we talked about this previously, but Bitcoin is nowhere near its realized price or its balance price, which essentially gets tapped into every single bear market. The Bitcoin balance price at this point in time is actually down to below $40,000. However, the Bitcoin realized price is down to around $54,000. So something for you to consider. And again, just to give you a quick recap on how I plan to dollar cost average into this market over the course of the next few months. If I can find the correct chart, we'll go on the weekly time frame, and you'll see here that as soon as Bitcoin drops below $60,000, I will start buying some spot Bitcoin. Then if we are to drop below $50,000, I will buy even more spot Bitcoin. This has been my strategy, and I just need to be patient and wait for things to play out. I'll keep you updated as the price action develops as always. Some of you have been asking me, what happens if we just rip from here? Well, it simply doesn't matter because I position myself in a way where I can take advantage of both sides of the market. What I mean by this is that I still hold a significant amount of spot Bitcoin. I just want to buy more as we head lower because I believe in this asset class in the long term. Now, over the course of this year, it's highly likely that most of my trades still are swing shorts in this market until I do deem that we've created some kind of bear market bottoming structure. I don't think that what we're seeing right now is the end of the bear market. And right as I wrap up this video, I needed to bring this to your attention. The US government will start refunding up to $166 billion in Trump-era tariffs after the Supreme Court ruled the policy unlawful. We have yet to see any kind of response from President Trump, but let's see how this develops because I would imagine he's not going to be too happy about this. And that sums up today's quick video. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. As always, I have my bluffin leverage trading tutorial right here, and I'll see you in the next video.